My coworker is jealous of my relationship with his office crush. He's making my life a living hell. No one liked Michael from accounting, and I mean no one. People wouldn't go out of their way to be a jerk to him, but he didn't have any real office buddies either. He just gave off this air about him. Like he thought he was better than everyone else, but he didn't have any reason to think that, so all he could do was stew and pick apart people's every move in some egotistical attempt to undermine them. Yeah, he's that type of guy. I was always careful to stay out of his way. The dude reeked of BO, and he always glowered at me as I walked past his desk. I tried saying hi to him once. No cigar. He just glared at me even harder until I got uncomfortable and left. All that to say, I wouldn't exactly go above and beyond to interact with Michael, but I was never a dick to him either. But unfortunately for me, that's not how he took it when I started talking to Kara. The first time I noticed it was at the office Christmas party. Don't look now, but Michael is staring daggers at you, Kara said, raising her cup to her lips. I didn't listen. I immediately turned and looked. Kara was right. Michael was standing alone in the corner, brooding. He had his arms crossed, one foot against the wall, and he was glaring directly at me. He wasn't even trying to hide it. Yeah, that's not creepy at all, I said, sweat beading atop my brow. Kara awkwardly giggled in response. The tension in the air was thicker than butter. I think I'm gonna say something to him, I muttered, breaking the silence. Kara's eyes grew wide. Dom, I don't think that's such a good idea. Michael's a weirdo. We should probably just ignore him. I sighed. She was right. Confronting Michael would only stir the pot. But even so, I felt like I needed to speak up. If he had a grudge against me, I wanted to know. It'll only take a second. Don't worry, I'm not going to provoke him. I'm just going to ask him to stop staring. I could see the worry behind Kara's eyes dissipate slightly, but I could tell that she was still concerned. Okay, just be smart about it. I nodded and began walking toward Michael, who remained perched against the wall like a fixture. Even though he knew that I was approaching him, he didn't avert his gaze. In fact, I think he started scowling at me harder. Hey Mike, I said, trying to choose words carefully. Just want to make sure everything's cool between us. Kara thought you were staring at her or something, but she's probably just overreak. Stay away from her. My mouth fell open. The way he'd said it caught me off guard. His demand was laced with a deep hatred, venom seeping through his clenched teeth. Excuse me. Michael's burning eyes locked with mine, and for a moment I felt small. Weak, like I was completely at his mercy. You heard me. Stay away from Kara. If you don't, I am going to unleash a hell the likes of which you can never even begin to grasp. I shook my head as a deep-seated rage bubbled within me. Look, man, I was trying to be nice about this, but you're taking it too far. Who are you to tell me who I can and can't talk to? Kara and I both think you're a creep. Leave us alone. Fine, Michael said, folding his arms across his chest and leaning back against the wall. You leave me no choice. Whatever, dude. Bye. And with that, I walked back to Kara, leaving Michael posing like the wannabe anime villain that he surely thought he was. It goes without saying that the rest of the Christmas party had been ruined. Michael kept staring, and even though I doubted he would actually do anything, his threat lingered at the back of my mind like a plague. As it turned out, I was right to worry. Weeks passed, and Kara and I grew closer by the day. I hadn't heard so much as a peep from Michael, just more wrathful glares whenever I passed by his cubicle. Things had been going smoothly. I'd finally met a girl who liked me, and my life had never been better. I finally felt like I was truly happy, until I had another run-in with Michael. Dominic! A nasally voice called my name as I was packing up to leave for the weekend. I mentally rolled my eyes. I didn't even have to glance up to know who it was. Hey Mike, I said, pursing my lips and continuing to gather my belongings. Michael wore a shit-eating grin. I didn't know why he was smiling at me, but I didn't like it. This is your final warning, Dominic. Leave Kara alone, or the fun will begin, Michael said, his chapped lips splitting apart to reveal rows of jagged teeth that looked as if they hadn't seen a toothbrush since 2014. Screw off, dude. I already told you that's not happening. I was hoping you'd say that, he replied, rubbing his hands together like a cartoonish antagonist. I cringed, hard. I am going to make you suffer, he said, beginning to cackle. And I am going to HR. Seriously, get a life. Michael scoffed, pushed his glasses further up his hooked nose, and slunk away without so much as another word. I breathed a sigh of relief, hoping that my threat had worked. Little did I know I had only poked the bear. That evening, my mother went missing. Dad could have sworn that she was upstairs in the bath, humming a soft tune to herself when it just stopped. After 30 minutes of complete silence, he'd gone to check on her, only to realize that she was gone. I couldn't believe the news. Mom wasn't the kind to just run off without telling anyone, and surely Dad would have noticed her walking out the door. I couldn't wrap my head around it. How could someone be there 1 minute, then disappear into thin air the next? I called off from work the next week to comfort Dad and help him search. I was taking it hard, but he was nearly inconsolable. The police were no help, in fact. I think they suspected that we had something to do with it. The whole thing made me sick to my stomach. I just wanted Mom to come home safely. By the time I returned to work, I felt like a shell of my former self. Kara tried her best to reassure me that everything would be fine, but what could she really do? The only thing that could take my pain away was for my mother to be found alive and well. That's why the note that appeared on my desk after I got back from lunch immediately caught my attention. I know where your mother is. Meet me behind the dumpster at 4:15 sharp. My mind raced with possibilities. Who had written this? Did they really know where Mom was, or was it all some disgusting prank? Whatever the case, I had to get to the bottom of it. My heart nearly exploded with anticipation as I rounded the corner. The dumpster was at the far end of the parking lot. It was surrounded by a large wooden fence, which offered the most inconspicuous spot for shady activity. I should have guessed who I'd find waiting for me. Mitchell. I think a part of me knew that I'd find him there, leaning against the wall, trying to act cool and mysterious. But still, something about seeing him there of all people twisted my stomach into knots. My sworn enemy was the last person I wanted to talk to at that moment. "Why, hello, Dominic," Michael said, grinning at me with those dirty, yellowed teeth. "WH, what are you doing here?" I croaked, my head starting to spin. "Weren't expecting to find me here, were you?" Yes, I can see why you would be confused," he said, hands behind his back as he began to saunter over to me. I realized that I may not look intimidating to Amir. Save me the monologue. "Where? Mom?" I spat through clenched teeth. He was acting like this was all some messed up game. A trivial punishment for crossing him. Something about his behavior ignited a fire in me, and Mitchell noticed. "Feeling a bit feisty now, are we? Well, all will come to light, just you wait. I know what happened to your mother, Dominic. Cease your relations with Kara, and I might consider slam." In a bout of rage, I shoved Michael hard against the wooden fence. "Are you fucking kidding me? All this just because you're jealous of me and Kara? Give me back my mother, or I swear, I'll knock out every tooth in your deformed skull and force each of them down your throat one by one." I raised a fist and watched as Michael cowered down like the worm he was. Okay, fine. "Here's the coordinates," he said, wincing as I lowered my hand. He scurried away the moment I took my eyes off him, scuttling into the driver's seat of an idling Honda Civic that I'd somehow missed entirely. Michael didn't even bother shouting an insult. The only thing I heard as I stood there, staring in shock at the crumpled piece of paper in my hand, was the screeching of tires as he peeled away. I obviously raced to the coordinates the second that I snapped out of it. I didn't know what I would find when I arrived, but it definitely wasn't what was waiting for me. The warehouse was about a 20-minute drive away. The sun still hadn't set when I got there, but it was low enough to splash the sky with an intoxicating pink tint. That scene stuck out in my mind as I pulled into the empty lot. Once I parked, I took a deep breath, steeled my resolve, and stepped outside. I walked up to the weather-beaten, rusted building and prepared for the worst. Michael had given me a way to find my mother. He never guaranteed me that she was alive. I slid open the door, heart in my throat. My eyes grew wide and my vision grew hazy when I drank in the scene before me. Mom wasn't there. No one was. The warehouse was completely empty, save for a single lawn chair sitting in the center of the room. A flood of emotions surged through me. Rage, betrayal, defeat. They all coalesced within me like a nauseating cocktail. Had Michael really gone through the trouble of finding the perfect place to hide someone just to lead me on a wild goose chase? I was fuming, ready to track the slimy weasel down and beat him into next week, when a thought flashed across my mind. The chair. Why would someone leave a single lawn chair in the middle of a seemingly abandoned warehouse? The more I thought about it, the less sense it made. Fueled by curiosity, I tentatively approached it, illuminated solely by the sliver of light seeping in through the partially open door. Once I was standing directly above it, I noticed a piece of paper lying face down on the chair's surface. When I flipped it over, I nearly passed out right then and there. "Have you heard from your father lately?" All the color drained from my face. That bastard. He couldn't have. I immediately pulled out my phone and tried calling Dad's number as I sprinted to my car. No dice. The phone just kept ringing and ringing until it went to voicemail. I flew out of that parking lot like a bat out of hell. I raced down highways and main roads going well above the legal limit, fortunate enough to have avoided any run-ins with the cops. Once I skidded to a halt in front of my parents' house, I slammed the car into park and leapt out, praying that I would burst through that door to find my father where he always was at that time of day, sitting in his favorite armchair, reading a novel before dinner. But that's not what I found. I shoved the door open, and I was greeted by an empty house. All the lights were off, and by that point, I was starting to feel nauseous. I just knew that Michael had taken my father from me too. "D-Dad," I called out, my voice quaking as tears welled in my eyes. I knew it was futile, but I had to try. A deep pit began to form in my chest when I was met with nothing but silence. I loved my parents dearly, and I'd be completely lost without them there to guide me. Click. I was suddenly ripped from my train of thought by the sound of the lamp by the sofa flicking on. It bathed the room in light, illuminating my worst nightmare. Michael was sitting on my parents' couch. The smug grin plastered on his face sent a chill creeping down my spine. What did you do to my parents?" I growled, glaring at Michael with a hatred stronger than I'd ever felt towards anyone. "Who? Your parent?" "Oh, you mean Steve and Linda. Quite pleasant people, if I do. Stop with the games," I seethed, taking a couple of aggressive steps toward him. Not so fast," Michael said, opening the lid of a laptop that had been lying beside him. "Take one more step, and you'll meet the same fate as your parents." I paused, wary of his threat. My voice quivered as I struggled to form a coherent sentence. "And what fate is that?" Michael's grin widened just a little. What he said next chilled me to my core. "Your parents were deleted, Dominic, wiped from existence by a program of my creation." My eyes grew wide. That wasn't possible. He had to be lying. "You see, I had a recent breakthrough, Dominic, a discovery that fundamentally disproves science as we know it. Through a variety of tests and a bit of luck, I have discovered that all matter is made up of binary code. It's not visible, but it's there. And it makes up all of us, everything. All matter, living or dead. I've developed a program that can take an object's specific line of code and poof, delete it, gone, like it never existed in the first place. All I could do was stare. If what Michael was saying was true, then had he, that's impossible. I don't believe you. Tell me where my parents are, you freak. What he was saying couldn't be true. That monster had kidnapped Mom and Dad, and I was determined to find them. I thought you might say that, Michael grinned, turning his attention to the laptop. What are you doing? His fingers flurried across the keys. I didn't even have a chance to react before he smirked at me maliciously. You're about to find out. Michael pressed the enter key, and I suddenly crashed to the floor. I was dazed, but once I recovered, I tried to scramble back to my feet, but I couldn't. I glanced down, dread pumping through my veins like venom. I felt all the color drain from my face, and I immediately understood why I couldn't stand back up. My left leg was missing, not hidden from view, not invisible, it was just gone. Why are you doing this to me? I croaked, still shocked by the sight of my missing appendage. Michael scoffed. I told you to leave Kara alone. You didn't do that, so now I'm removing you from the picture. I glowered up at him. I had never despised anyone more than the man staring back at me. All this over a girl who doesn't even look in your direction. She'll never go for you. You're fucking delusional. That may be true, but I doubt she'll stick around for a man with no legs either. I looked down again, consumed by fear. Just like Michael had implied, my right leg was missing and a pool of crimson was blossoming at my pelvis. Michael smirked. He looked giddier than a child on Christmas morning. This really is a shame, Dominic. I gave you a chance to do better, but you didn't. You had your shot and you blew it. I know that Kara is out of my league, but as the old adage goes, if I can't have her, no one can. \\\\*, that's how I ended up here, bleeding out on my living room floor with this freak show reveling in my suffering. I can't call for help or Michael is going to delete the rest of me, just like he did to my parents. Either way, I'm going to be joining them soon enough. I'm already getting dizzy from the blood loss. I'm sharing this as a warning. Michael thinks no one will believe me, but I swear I'm not lying. I have to get this out so that someone knows. Once I'm gone, there won't be any evidence to tie him to the crime, and I won't be his last victim. Please heed my warning. If you have a coworker who claims to have the ability to erase people from existence, don't blow them off, because there's a chance that they might be telling the truth.